Welcome to Let's Get Scared channel. Today, we present you 8 scary stories from the dark web. The dark web is a hidden internet network where people engage in criminal activities of all kinds. It is not for those with weak hearts. The dark web is a place where the worst of humanity manifests itself, and sometimes, horrible horrors await those who wander too deep. So, grab a snack, sit tight and listen. Here are the stories. My name is Jennifer Murphy and I am an investigative journalist. I write about various issues ranging from political scandals to crime. I have connections in the law enforcement and often I hear about cold cases that have not been resolved in decades. The case of Margie Johnson was puzzling and drew my attention. Margie was a freshman in college when she vanished. According to the reports, she struggled financially. To make ends meet, Margie went online and got into some trouble. Her friends claimed that Margie got into the dangerous world of dark web, where she stripped on camera for strangers who paid a lot of money to watch her performance. Until recently, the police had exhausted all leads, and the case had gone cold. With all this information, I started snooping around and eventually got an anonymous tip. I couldn't help but look into it further. The tip directed me to some of the dark web's most notorious human trafficking websites. I knew I was risking my life by entering this world. But I was eager to find out what had happened to Margie. I wanted to find her and hope that she is still alive. I began by creating a fake identity and joining various dark web chat rooms in the hopes of finding some information. It wasn't long before I hit gold. A user named Darkness Within contacted me, claiming to be knowledgeable about Margie's case. After a few messages, Darkness Within informed me that he had information that could lead to Margie's location. He refused to reveal any specifics until we met in person, and he gave me a meeting spot. I hesitated, wondering whether I was stepping into a trap, but the investigator in me triumphed. I arrived at the meeting location, a desolate alleyway in a shabby neighborhood of the city. Darkness Within was waiting for me, cloaked in darkness. "Hello," I said, attempting to project confidence. "Are you here for Margie?" he demanded, his voice low and threatening. "Yes," I answered. My heart was racing so hard, I could hear it. "Follow me," he added as he turned to walk farther into the alley. I followed him with caution, my hand on the pepper spray in my pocket. We entered a rundown structure and ascended several flights of stairs before reaching a barred door. Darkness Within produced a key and opened it. I entered, my eyes adjusting to the low lighting. What I saw made me gasp. The room was crammed with screens, each depicting a different aspect of Margie's kidnapping. The screens showed her being abducted, struggling and screaming in agony. I felt ill to my stomach watching. I shifted my gaze to Darkness Within. "How did you get this video footage?" "I have my own ways," he smirked. Please tell me where Margie is," I pleaded. "Be patient, my dear. I got an offer for you. I have some info that you could find useful, but it comes at a price," he said. "What is the price?" "Your life," he said and pulled out a gun. My mind raced as I froze. That was the end of it. I was going to die alone and forgotten in this dirty chamber. Wait, I mumbled. "I'll leave. But just tell me if she's alive." "She is alive. But, that's all I am saying. You're meddling too much. I'll let you live if you go now and never return. If you leave, consider this a warning," he replied. I couldn't help but agree. I exited the room, scared and terrified, but resolved to complete what I had begun. I believed Margie's family deserved justice, and I wasn't about to give up. Over the next several months, I pushed deeper into the dark web, risking my life to find more information regarding Margie's whereabouts. Eventually, after months of investigation and collaboration with the authorities, I was able to hunt down some of the individuals responsible for her kidnapping and bring them to justice. The victory was bittersweet. Margie was never found, but at least her family had some answers. Margie's case drew a lot of national attention, and more people showed interest in finding her. As my research and investigation gained popularity, I still felt like I was being watched. I'd become too entangled in Margie's case, and the human traffickers who kidnapped her wanted to stop me. One night, I received a threatening message from an anonymous sender. They told me to keep away from the case, or else I will be killed. I realized I had to act quickly to protect myself. I asked a friend who was a private investigator for assistance. We traced the message back to a group of cybercriminals hired to scare me. We involved the police too. I was constantly afraid, always looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was watching me. The threat subsided with time, but I couldn't forget what I had seen and experienced on the dark web. It is a terrifying world where the most dangerous people meet to commit crime of all kinds. I decided to publish a book about my experience in the hopes of raising awareness about the dangers of the dark web. In my book I call for improved online security measures and more education for the general public. It was a dangerous action on my part, but I believed it was vital to put light on this hidden dark web underworld of crimes being done. The book was widely distributed and got extensive attention, sparking a national debate about online safety and privacy. In the big scheme of things, it was a minor win. But I got some closure and a sense of purpose. Looking back, I can't believe how far I went to find out what happened to Margie. It was a scary journey that taught me the value of perseverance and the power of journalism. I may never find out what happened to Margie. But I hope that her case will encourage others to pursue justice and put a light on the darkest corners of our world. I am Max Carter, and I'm a famous YouTuber. My mystery box videos, in which I unwrap goods I either buy or receive as gifts, have a large following. Especially the mystery boxes from the dark web. My channel subscribers adore my reactions and my ability to turn even the most basic objects into eerie and strange. I love engaging with my subscribers. I spend a lot of time each day communicating with them, responding to some comments, and providing them with a behind-the-scenes glimpse at my life. But one day, I got a present box from the dark web that would change my life forever. That day I was live streaming for my YouTube channel when I received the gift box. I immediately shared my reactions with my fans. The box contents were unlike anything I had ever seen. They were unusual, disturbing, and appeared to be clues of some kind. The more items I revealed, the more I began to feel nervous. I wanted to stop, but I didn't want to disappoint my viewers, so I continued to unwrap the items one by one. As I unveiled each item, I realized I was dealing with something far more significant than just a mystery box. The items included photographs of me. One photograph in particular made me feel like I was in danger. It showed me in front of my house. Following the conclusion of the live stream, I began to receive weird messages. The messages were eerie, threatening, and gave me the impression that I was being watched. I tried to dismiss it, but events began to unfold that would send me on a roller coaster ride to escape the dark web stalker. My car was vandalized. My social media accounts were hacked few times. And I got threatening comments on my videos. I felt I had to act quickly to stop the stalker before things worsened. I decided to find out who is behind this stalking. I recruited the assistance of a few friends who were dark web gurus. We realized that the contents in the box were clues to the identity of the stalker. We also determined that the stalker had been observing my every move for months. Soon we involved the police. With the police help, we tracked down the stalker's location and went to confront him. When we arrived, however, we discovered that there was more than one stalker. For months, they had been planning to kidnap me for a lucrative ransom. The stalkers were armed and prepared to kill. My friends and I were caught off surprise, but the police helped in a huge way. We escaped after a terrible and brutal fight between the stalkers and the cops. The stalkers were arrested, but I knew this was not the end of this story. Being a famous personality, I knew there would always be someone who wanted to hurt me. This scary experience taught me an important lesson. I have learned that some things are simply too dangerous to meddle with. The dark web is not to be taken lightly, and one can put themselves in serious danger. I now am very cautious about what I shared with the world. I kept making videos, but my focus shifted. I began making films about staying safe online and protecting oneself from stalkers. I also promised myself and my fans that I would never again open a mystery box. The dark web is a dangerous territory, and I don't want to endanger myself or others. Even after the stalkers were arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching me. I was continuously looking behind me and scanning my surroundings. It took some time for me to feel safe again, but I was eventually able to go on with my life. This terrifying experience changed me. It made me more wary of the hazards that exist in the world. It also helped me appreciate my family and fan support even more. I know that I would not have been able to get through that difficult time without them. There sure is no such thing as a harmless thrill. The deep, dark internet is a very dark and dangerous place, and we must all be cautious about what we share and whom we contact. It is critical to remain cautious and take threats seriously at all times. Because you never know who is looking. It was a rainy Monday evening. The sky was dark and foreboding. For hours, John had sat in front of his computer, scrolling around the dark web, looking for something fresh and intriguing. He'd heard about a game room where people could place wagers and become characters in the game, and that piqued his interest. John was a natural thrill seeker who was lured to the darker side of life. He was a loner kind of guy. John felt like his life lacked excitement, as if something was missing. Maybe the game was what he needed to break the monotony. One evening, he looked for the dark web game. Searching took a while. Eventually, he found the link to the game. When he clicked, John found himself looking at a dark, sinister-looking website. He was prompted to enter his name and email address before being granted entry to the chat area. People from all across the world crowded the chat room, each with a strange, twisted username, such as the Butcher, the Executioner, and the Torturer. The game's rules were straightforward. Each game would include 10 players. One of the conditions was to reveal the actual name of the town each player is playing from. The game would then give players a set of coordinates, and they would have to look for the clues. Watchers would be employed to the towns, following and recording the game participants. If the participants don't uncover the clues, a serial killer stationed in the town will start looking for them. Everything was live streamed in the chat room. Viewers could post bets on who would survive the game. As he read over the game rules, John's heart began to race. It was outrageous, hazardous, and the most exciting thing he had ever encountered. After watching a game in progress, John made the decision to play in the next game. When the game day arrived, John logged into the chat room. The other players greeted him, each with a twisted, horrific username. The vibe John got was that of a living nightmare, but he couldn't take his gaze away. When the first clue was revealed, John set out to find it in his hometown. First clue he found with ease, but the next one was on the outskirts of town. There was an abandoned old factory. In order to get his next clue, John had to break in. His heart was racing because he knew he was breaking the law by trespassing. But he had to find the clue. It was a life or death situation. As he looked for the clue, John couldn't help but think of how this was all live streaming. He knew someone was watching his every move and recording. He tried to ignore it and concentrate on finding the clue, but the feeling just intensified. He was surprised to hear a noise behind him. Turning to look, he saw a man hiding in the shadows staring at him. It had to be one of the serial killers. Just the thought of a cold-blooded killer following him gave John chills. He began breaking out in a cold sweat when he realized that time is of essence. Frantically, John managed to quickly locate the final clue and exited the factory just as the killer crashed through the door behind him. John ran. The killer ran after him. John dashed to his car and drove as fast as he could. Trembling, his heart beating as he drove, John started to feel terrified and a sense of dread came over him. John had never experienced anything like this before and he knew he'd put his life in danger by taking part in the game. Later, when he was safe at home, John returned to the dark web chat room. He was informed that he had survived the game. People congratulated him and praised him for his skill. It felt good to be acknowledged. But he couldn't relish in his glory for long because a new game was ready to start, new participants were assigned, and viewers started betting. John knew he should abandon the game, but he couldn't resist the rush and adrenaline it provided. He signed up and played the game few more times. He kept playing, each game more risky and terrible than the last. As the games proceeded, John saw that the killers were catching up with him. He knew that he was being watched. And he feared that they knew his identity and where he lived. After finishing a game one night, John heard a knock at the door. He paused for a beat, unsure whether he should respond. Reluctantly, he opened the door. A man wearing all black stood on his porch. As John recognized this was one of the game's killers, a cold shiver ran down his spine. The man pushed his way inside John's apartment and John attempted to beat him off. But the killer was too powerful and he rapidly overwhelmed John. He tied him up and began torturing him, questioning him about the game and the other participants. John knew he would be killed. He had gone hunting for trouble and he had found it. The killer finally finished with John, leaving him broken and bruised on the floor. He vanished into the night, leaving John alone in his apartment. The news of John's death immediately circulated around the dark web chat room and the other members were startled and frightened. Even though they lamented his death, they couldn't help but experience a sense of excitement and adrenaline. They were aware of the life-threatening nature of the game, yet they couldn't stop. The game room remained open, attracting thrill seekers from all around the world. The games became more dangerous and lethal, and the barrier between reality and illusion became increasingly blurred. In the end, many died because of the game that left a path of carnage and chaos in its wake. Even when the authorities shut down the game room and arrested the killers, the participants couldn't get over the thrill they had felt. Even as the survivors moved on with their lives, they filled online public forums with their personal stories of the excitement of the deadly game and the risk they had taken. My name is Joshua and I want to share a scary experience I had on the dark web. My friend, Kathy, told me about a video on the dark web of a man who had been injected with a combination of adrenaline and psychedelics, then subjected to flashing pictures of gore and torture sounds to generate an extreme psychedelic trip. The goal was to drive the human mind to its breaking point. I have a deep interest in the human psyche. Although my interest was piqued, I was also mindful of the risks of watching it. Regardless, I was curious. So, I went on the dark web and started searching. I eventually found a discussion post on one of the more hidden forums. There were people who claimed to have seen the video, and their descriptions increased my curiosity. Many people described the video as if it were a fake. Most others claimed it was real and the most terrifying experience they had ever had. I eventually came across a link to the video itself. I had no idea what to expect. The video began showing an empty room. A man sat motionless in a wooden chair. He looked frozen, his eyes were open and unblinking. He didn't move or speak. Then, the screen began to flicker faster and faster, showing flashing pictures of horror and brutality. The sounds that accompanied the images were just as disturbing. Agonizing screams, metal scraping against metal, and the terrible crunch of bones breaking. As the video progressed, I felt something shift within me. Unease and terror were creeping up on me. Yet, I couldn't stop watching. Every bit of my being pleaded with me to stop. It felt as if I was possessed. My heart rate increased as the flashing pictures and sounds continued to bombard my senses. My vision began to blur and warp as I began to sweat intensely. I was caught in the middle of a wild psychedelic experience. And there was no way out. The video finished just as I felt I couldn't stand it any longer. The screen blacked out, leaving me alone in a dark room, my pulse beating and my senses overwhelmed. Unease rushed over me as I sat there, attempting to catch my breath and quiet my racing thoughts. It felt like I will never be the same again. Finally, I couldn't tell whether the video was a fiction of someone's sick imagination or genuine. But I knew it had changed me. I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled inside of me, and I knew the video had left an irreversible mark on me. My name is CJ. I was in a very desperate situation. Livy, my daughter, had kidney failure and was undergoing dialysis. Like any good parent, I just wanted my daughter to live a healthy life. Despite treatment, she was deteriorating. And the waiting list for organ donors was lengthy. She needed a kidney ASAP. I have worked in the financial sector as a banker for many years. So money was not a problem for me. I would give anything to help my daughter. I turned to the dark web after exhausting all conventional methods of getting her the organ transplant. After hours of browsing the dark web, I came across an auction site that looked to have everything, including auctioning off organs. The website appeared scary and unsettling, but I didn't care. Saving my daughter's life was a priority. I bid on a kidney and eventually won the auction. As soon as I got the matching kidney for Livy, I arranged for the transplant to be performed in a private clinic outside of the country. The surgery and recovery went well. Soon we returned home to the United States in hopes of having a normal life again. But there was something wrong. My daughter began to act strangely. Her skin had a sickly pallor to it. Livy complained of fatigue and pain all the time. I found the best doctors for her, but none of them could find anything wrong with her. Her body was merely adjusting to the new kidney, they explained. But I had a feeling something was very wrong. I began doing some research on the dark web and discovered that the kidney I had purchased had come from a condemned prisoner on a death row. After his execution, his organs were sold on the black market. I was shocked. My skin crawled at the notion of my daughter carrying a killer's kidney inside her. It was, however, too late. The harm had already been done. My daughter's condition was deteriorating by the day. She had experienced terrible nightmares and awoke screaming in the middle of the night. She became hostile and violent too. I tried to help her, but she acted like she was possessed by a devil. I awoke one night to see her standing over me with a knife. Her eyes were wild and she sounded incoherent. I had to disarm and restrain her. Desperate for a solution, I returned to the dark web's auction site. I contacted the site's moderator. They claimed that the only option was to bid on a new kidney or have one specially ordered. I'd have to pay extra for the latter. I reluctantly consented to make a custom order. My daughter underwent another surgery outside the country. It was a resounding success. She is currently doing great and her natural personality has returned. But I have a bad conscience. I'm curious how the dark web organ auctioneer got my special order. I know it was most likely done illegally. But at what cost had I spared my daughter's life? The black market's darkness had poisoned my soul, and I had played straight into its hands. I am grateful that my kid is still alive. But I'm aware that someone else paid a heavy price for my family's happiness. I'm Scott, a sophomore in high school. Strange phenomena, such as aliens, have always piqued my interest. I'm very intrigued by UFOs. The X-Files is my favorite show to watch. I've read a ton of books regarding aliens and am always looking for proof of their existence. There is no way we are all alone in this universe. One of my pals advised I look into the dark web, stating I would be able to obtain legitimate material that would otherwise be censored. So I did. My fascination with the aliens quickly became an obsession. Almost every day after school, I would spend hours searching the dark web for whatever information I could uncover. I'd read stories of persons who claimed to have seen UFOs and visited Area 51. People even posted first-hand stories about extraterrestrial abductions. Some of them sounded authentic. One day, I came across a website that made some outlandish promises. It was dubbed the Proof of Extraterrestrial Life, and it claimed to have genuine NASA and government film of extraterrestrials. I was doubtful at first, but the more I read, the more interested I became. It took me a while to find out how to access the graphic content because the website was extremely complex, difficult, and secretive. But I ultimately found my way, and what I saw there will haunt me for the rest of my life. There were playlists of videos. Playlists were titled things like alien abductions, unidentified flying objects, Area 51 files, and so on. I watched some of the videos from each playlist. The alien abductions largely contained interviews with people who claimed to have been kidnapped. The UFOs depicted alien aircraft attacking our Air Force in armed conflicts. I then watched video from the government files playlist. I saw politicians and military men seated around a table discussing extraterrestrials. They were discussing ways to keep the general people from learning about the aliens in those clips. But none of those videos compared to the experiments playlist. This playlist had HD-style clips that appeared to have been recorded with the latest technology. There were several videos of humans and animals being examined. At first, I believed the videos showed autopsies being performed. Each human and animal was assigned a code, which was displayed on the screen alongside a headshot photograph of the subject. Each autopsy was performed by the same medical examiner. I recall thinking the experiments playlist was in the wrong location until I saw a video that explained what was going on. It was video number 123. Instead of a medical examiner's workroom, there was now a spacious conference area. There were a lot of people there, and it appeared to be some kind of gala. Then odd, blonde, and very tall humanoid figures entered the meeting room amid cheer and applause. The feasting began. The humanoid beings were offered human and animal organs and body parts from a table, displaying each gruesome item on silver trays. I felt like puking. Then I tried convincing myself that everything was a hoax. It had to be from a science fiction movie. After all, the dark web is full of many forms of darkness, including lies. But suddenly something attracted my attention. While the camera was showing body parts on the table, I observed that next to each horrible platter was a photograph of an animal or a human. And one human image drove shivers down my spine. It was the young woman who vanished from my hometown a few years ago. I paused the movie, zoomed in on the screen, and was certain it was her. I even looked her up on Google and compared the photographs. It was the same individual. I was appalled, yet I couldn't take my eyes off her. I rewatched the content for hours, my stomach churning with disgust and horror. I couldn't bring myself to view another video in the playlist. I really should have known better. I should have just shut down the browser and walked away. It was too late to report what I observed to the authorities. The girl has vanished. Aliens ate her. I couldn't help but wonder, with sadness and worry, who the other victims were. I vowed never to use the dark web again after that. I realized the risk was just too large and there was nothing worth jeopardizing my sanity for. In regards to whether I now believe aliens exist, well, I got my proof. The memory of what I saw on that website haunts me, and I know I'll never be able to totally forget it. I know the truth is out there. And it's grislier than we can imagine. I am Sherry and this is my dark web story. Back in the day, when I was in college, I was a social media addict. Every day, I would spend hours going through my feeds, liking posts, commenting on photographs, blogging and messaging friends. It was exciting. Then odd things started happening. People I didn't know sent me friend requests. Because I ran a fashion blog, I assumed they were simply fans of my content. But I soon understood that they were all the same person, a man with a blank profile photo and a username that was just a random string of numbers and letters. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it was a bot or a spam account and blocked it before moving on. But then it started happening again and again. I'd get a new friend request from the same scary account every day. It was impossible to ignore it. The stalker got more relentless and invasive as I sought to remove myself from them. I even began receiving private texts in which I was asked personal questions. The stalker made inappropriate remarks about my appearance. I was afraid and didn't know what to do. I reported the harassment to the authorities, but they were powerless to intervene and encouraged me to gather additional evidence. I attempted to block the account, but the stalker simply created a new one and began harassing me again. Later, the police told me more about the stalker. This individual was a master hacker, capable of easily breaking into any social media account and stealing personal information to sell on the dark web. They were a ghost with no genuine identity or internet presence, and they were hell-bent on destroying my life. I attempted to fight back by hiring cybersecurity specialists and seeking the assistance of my tech-savvy friends. But it was too late. The stalker had already penetrated every part of my life. And there was nothing I could do to stop him. Private images of me are still circulating on the dark web. In the end, I decided to go off the grid. I deleted all of my social media profiles, changed my legal name and moved to another city. It was a drastic measure, but it was the only way to escape the continuous targeting of the social media monster that had taken over and exposed my life to the shady underworld of the dark web. My name is Jacob. This happened when I was in college, studying business management. It was a stressful time for me, and I felt like doing anything else but my schoolwork. All I wanted to do was either game online or browse the internet. One day, I was scrolling through my social media pages when I came across a post about a service that can assist students find exam questions and answers. There was an email contact link. I clicked and messaged them. I got a response an hour later. The sender identified himself as Robert Kowalski. He claimed to run a private firm that helps struggling students excel in school. The services ranged from essay writing to revealing exam questions. He seemed like the real deal. I struggled to catch up with my studies. The midterms were just around the corner. I felt stressed out. I can use some help, I remember thinking. Impulsively, I decided to buy exam questions for all of my classes. Surprisingly, Robert responded quickly and offered me instructions on how to retrieve the material. He also wanted me to disclose some of my personal information. I provided my school account email address, school name, class schedule, and so on. To pay him, I had to buy some bitcoins, install the Tor browser on my computer, and find his website on the dark web from the link he provided. After a few days, I received a private email from Robert telling me that my purchase was ready to download. I was using the school computer to do an assignment and didn't have access to my personal laptop. I clicked on the link from the email and downloaded the file without thinking. I was experiencing a surge of excitement as I pictured myself passing all of my midterms. When I started to access the file after downloading it, the computer screen trembled and went black. I tried restarting the computer, but it seemed to have a mind of its own. Its screen was dark with hundreds of computer code scrolling on it. The computer had been infected with a virus. I had no idea how to stop what was happening. I didn't know how serious the problem was at first. I felt that if I told the computer lab technician that the computer had broken, the virus would be easy to remove. I assumed I could just carry on as usual. However, I quickly learned the issue was more serious than I had thought. Within a day, the virus had begun to spread to other computers on the campus network. It caused havoc, resulting in the entire system to fail and sensitive information to be compromised. The school's IT department investigated, and it didn't take them long to pin the virus's origin on me. I was summoned in for questioning and was compelled to admit that I attempted to cheat. The harm had been done, and I was facing serious consequences. The college administration was enraged, and they decided to charge me with cybercrime. I was suspended from school and faced a possible prison sentence. Thankfully, I was able to avoid prison time by working with authorities and assisting them in identifying the hacker who had infected the college systems. It turned out that the hacker was a member of an international cybercriminal group operating from the depths of the dark web. They had been using lazy and naive people like me to spread their malware and steal sensitive information from large institutions. The whole experience was as a wake-up call for me. I realized that success necessitates hard work. Due to my actions, I faced serious consequences, and I needed to accept responsibility for my mistakes. Since I couldn't earn a college degree, I opted for getting certified to become an electrician. I never forgot what I had learned. I had come dangerously close to losing everything, and I vowed never to make the same mistake again. Thank you for your time. Your every like and share helps this channel to grow. Please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss our new content. As always, your suggestions and feedback are welcome. Until the next video, stay safe and be careful about what you click on.